A Chaos Emerald? You've got to be kidding me, guys. This is like taking candy from a baby, which is fine by me.
I think a lot of people are big fans of Shadow as a character.
That's what I'm talking about! That's why he's the MVP! That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
His introduction in Sonic Adventure 2 solidified Shadow as the dark counterpart to everyone's favorite blue hero, appearing in a ridiculous amount of Sonic games since then. While Shadow has been a worthy and admired addition to the Sonic band of characters, he hasn't been without his controversies, and no, I'm not talking about him spawning the spew of red and black original fan characters, even sort of creating the stereotype of bad OCs. If you know, you know. If you don't know, be thankful you're blissfully ignorant.
You don't want to be like this. This is disgusting. This is awful in every way. If I could kill it, I would. But I legally can't. But I've considered it.
Shadow was the original Edgelord.
He is the Edgelord. His world is so bleak. He is the Edgelord. He will never conform. He is the Edgelord. You are not the Edgelord.
And pretty much every other kid back then who was a Sonic fan went through a cringy time period where they were obsessed with Shadow, myself included. It wasn't until I became an adult that I realized virtually every single kid goes through a really cringy period in their life where they're transitioning from being a kid to being an adult, and they just do a lot of really weird, cringy stuff. I remember playing Sonic Adventure 2 on the Gamecube for the first time after borrowing it from a friend, followed by gobbling up more of Shadow and Sonic Heroes, albeit that game was a huge letdown, but that's a story for another video, maybe, one day. Please don't make me play that. See, the problem with Shadow is the good boys over at Sonic Team just didn't know what to do with him, or how to capitalize on the instant success of the character. After his supposed death in Sonic Adventure 2, he was reintroduced during Sonic Heroes where they came up with an amnesia plotline, saying that Shadow lost his memory and didn't remember who he was, or how he came to be, while also toying with the idea that he could also be an android. With Sonic Heroes having a lackluster story with no real substance, many people were excited when it was revealed that after much of the clamoring by 14-year-old edgelords like myself, Shadow the Hedgehog would finally get his own game where he was the star. But this wasn't just a Sonic game starring Shadow. No. This was a Sonic game starring Shadow with guns. Sega, in their infinite brainpower, said to themselves, what if we made a Sonic game that had motorcycles and guns and Shadow saying the word damn all the time?
Where's that damn fourth Chaos Emerald?
With all this awesomeness pumped into it, what could possibly go wrong? Well, the answer to that is a lot, because Shadow the Hedgehog would launch in 2005 to below mediocre reviews. It turned out that just making Sonic edgy and throwing in guns wouldn't be enough to create a great game. Fun fact, Shadow the Hedgehog actually pushed the envelope so much that it was one of the first games to actually receive the established E10 rating instead of E, and I'm pretty sure it was the very first Sonic game to do so. Shadow the Hedgehog would be one of the first poorly received Sonic games to begin the supposed dark ages of the Sonic franchise, followed by the dreadful and hated Sonic 06. Though I personally feel that Sonic Heroes was the groundwork for the start of the Dark Ages. I remember Kid Me actually loved this game though, as I didn't really know any better. I played it extensively, only remember how cool it was to be using guns and vehicles in a Sonic game. My teenage brain just couldn't comprehend any of the game's flaws back then, as I'm sure many people probably couldn't. It's a game that is still loathed to this very day as well, but it surprisingly didn't leave much of a dent on the character's legacy, as Shadow would remain a staple of the Sonic franchise, and a character that would find himself represented regularly in most mainline Sonic entries. Shadow's past didn't damage his future, that's for sure, as everyone seems to mostly have forgotten about the dark chapter that was Shadow the Hedgehog. But it did get me curious. Is this game really as bad as people say it was, and is my memory of it being not that bad just me being a dumb kid who didn't know any better? I set out to find the truth, so I popped in the GameCube version of the game, as that's the version I owned back then. So I wanted to recreate the game as I remember it and see if it holds up to my memories or if I'm just a stupid kid. As we approach the end of Sonic Month, I figured what a great time to give one of the most loathed entries in the franchise another shot. Is it possible this game was actually better than we all remember it? We just judged it too harshly? Well, we're going to find out by the end of this video, so keep watching.
I am the ultimate hedgehog. This is who I am.
From a graphic standpoint, Shadow the Hedgehog definitely is a step up from its predecessors, but artistically it takes a different turn entirely. Like its protagonist, the game uses a lot of darker color schemes and lighting to give it more of that dark atmosphere which it achieves very well.
I suggest you let that one marinate.
I think the thing it actually achieves pretty well is being able to actually mesh Sonic characters with realistic guns, vehicles, and settings without making them seem completely out of place like other games in the franchise did. I legitimately thought Sonic characters with their comically large hands holding guns was going to look absolutely silly, but it's surprising to look as stupid as I thought it would. Though it still is somewhat silly. I guess I just remember kid me being insanely disappointed that people didn't bleed when you shoot them. But I think it goes without saying that any game that gives you real-world style guns, you expect the enemies to legitimately die when you empty a few magazines on them.
What the hell's the point of shooting at targets that don't scream or bleed? It's getting old. I'm ready for real people.
As a kid, I remember thinking fondly of this game's gameplay. As an adult, I now know better. Look, I could talk about the Shadow Reloaded hack that was made for this game that improves its flaws in gameplay, and I'm going to get to that at the end of the video, don't worry, that will be brought up. But we're here for that authentic experience like it was back in the day. So we're going straight up original GameCube 2005 unfiltered experience. Back then, my pathetic underdeveloped brain did not realize how astronomically dumb the design choices in this game were, but now I can see them. Look, I'm not going to say every choice in this game is bad, because I can see what they were going for the most part. And truthfully, the firearm concept is ironically the only part of this game that I think worked somewhat correctly for the most part. What did work correctly is virtually everything else. Virtually every single choice to make this game different and stand out from other Sonic games falls flat on its face. It is marred with a myriad of strange design choices that just don't work the way that they probably were intended. Vehicles were made an odd choice, for example, because they often slow down the mission, control awkwardly, and make no sense when Shadow can literally outrun them. Literally, this guy canonically can run several hundreds of miles per hour. That isn't to say that the only thing intended to make the game different from other Sonic games doesn't work, because even the core Sonic gameplay just feels kind of awkward, slippery, and broken here. Most of the platforming feels unnatural, and you'll fall to your death on accident from just slipping off from the level, and some of the lousiest level designs you've ever seen at times. While these levels themselves are about what you'd expect from a Sonic game, and diversity-wise they're pretty different from each other and look the part, all being visually stunning, their biggest flaw though of these levels is they're way too large. Levels drag on and on and on. This is made worse with the game's choice of going with missions over conventional run-to-the-exit designs. Don't get me wrong, you can just run to the exit if you want to get the neutral ending on every stage, but to get any of the game's many endings and see other levels, you will need to complete very tedious missions, many of which include tasks such as killing every single enemy on the level of one faction, which is so time-consuming because there's no real system to detect where any of the ones you might have missed might even be hiding. This means teleporting back to the start of the stage and crawling through its slow and meticulous level design. And is this supposed to be a game about Shadow the Hedgehog?
I'm Shadow the Hedgehog.
Sonic's rival? The only character intended to rival Sonic in speed? And yet some of his levels move at a snail's pace. I think one level took me around 35 minutes to find the last remaining enemy that was hiding, because they're just hidden so well that you don't even know where to look. The pacing of these missions just flat out sucks. And that's what brings us to the next problem with the design of this game. To truly complete it and see the real ending, you have to get every single ending in the game. And there's a lot of them, 10 by my count. And each ending requires you to replay the first level and take a different path. You cannot just go to mission select and choose the level you want to play. Nope, you have to do it from start, which means doing some of these tedious missions multiple times.
Oh, somebody kill me, please! Somebody kill me, please!
It is a dreadfully tedious design choice, one that still boggles my mind to this day. The only plus side is that if you play for different endings, you can see different levels, and technically speaking, some levels never even have to play at all if you play it correctly. I get the idea that you had to walk the hero, dark, or neutral path, and it was meant to make each playthrough feel different, but it just ends up making every playthrough suck. While I won't say the difficulty is very high, as the punishment for getting hit is only dropping 10 rings instead of the traditional Sonic formula for dropping all of them, you will get many, many cheap deaths though. Bosses are also often just recycled throughout the game, and many of the times they're just uninspired and just cheap. They just also don't seem to feel like they work properly. Graphic-wise, there's nothing really to complain about there though. The game looks decent enough for the time period, and definitely looks a large step up from the games on the Dreamcast, albeit the president looks like he regularly skips Arm Day.
Tell the commanding generals that the United Federation will never surrender to terrorists.
Yes, Mr. President.
While the levels have enough diversity, the fact that you have to replay them many times makes them really annoying. The first level alone will have you replay it a ridiculous amount of times if you want to complete this game. My biggest issue is the game breaks up the traditional Sonic gameplay, in that it's not about going fast with the occasional platforming and enemy combat, but you'll find yourself, as I've already said, crawling through levels carefully and revisiting earlier sections over and over to look for some random enemy that you might have missed. The guns are cool though, and probably the only part of the game that I actually really like. It's just too bad they don't seem to work properly all the time. Still, there are a few levels that actually do play pretty well, and they're actually fun to go through, and even the missions on them aren't too bad. So it's not like it's the worst Sonic designs I've ever seen, that's for sure. Shadow the Hedgehog probably had the most interesting premise that loses steam and eventually falls off that I've ever encountered in the Sonic franchise. Coming off of the events of Sonic Adventure 2 and the dreaded Sonic Heroes, Shadow suffered a head injury on his fall from the Ark in Sonic Adventure 2 and has amnesia, not remembering much of his past. While he's contemplating on who he really is, the entire planet is invaded by aliens known as the Black Arms, led by their evil leader Black Doom. Yeah, his name is stupid, I know.
Shadow the Hedgehog. Why does that name haunt me? It's the only thing I can remember. And that gruesome image. Maria! Who am I? And why can't I remember anything? And who is this Maria? Look how pathetic they are. I don't have time for these humans.
As you can see, the day of reckoning will soon be here. Find the 7 Chaos Emeralds and bring them to me as promised.
Who are you, and how do you know I'm Shadow? And what are you talking about? Just what was that all about? If he says he knows the truth about who I am, then like it or not, I have to believe him. The only way I'm gonna get the secrets to my past is to get those Chaos Emeralds.
Doom tells Shadow that he knows the secrets to his past and that he'll help him remember who he is if Shadow assists him in overtaking the entire planet. This leads to a series of choices of either doing the right thing and helping Sonic and his friends, or being an evil douchebag who helps the Black Arms take over the planet, or just being completely nonchalant and ignoring the both of them. Because the story has branching paths, it's hard to fully explain what happens, but don't worry because the branching isn't really that extensive, as many cutscenes are barely altered, shy of taking a few different choices. The President and the Commander of Gun, an organization intending to protect Earth, are all skeptical of Shadow and will regularly try to interfere with his progress, in fear that he's going to help the Black Doom. What's really hilarious here is Sonic actively telling you how to use and switch guns while simultaneously saying he wouldn't be caught dead with one.
Swap your weapon for another weapon that's on the ground. Just press the X button.
And the fact that Sonic had tons of PSAs back in the 90s about safety to kids. Also, he demands you take a tank out at one point, but the blue douchebag won't pick up a gun and try and actually help. This story will end up playing out one of several different ways, with Shadow remembering his past with Maria, who died on the Ark years ago, and making a choice on how he chooses to deal with that fact. He can either turn on the Black Arms, take out Black Doom, and declare his dedication to his promise to Maria, or he can choose to join the Black Arms, who we find out were actually the source of the DNA that created Shadow in the first place, which of course is a hilariously absurd explanation that nobody was asking. There's an even ending where he kills Sonic, which kid me was so stupid that I legitimately thought this meant Sonic was actually permanently dead in the franchise, and that we just weren't going to get Sonic anymore. The reality is, though, that none of these endings even matter, because many of the game's endings are actually extremely similar with only minor dialogue changes, including a stupid ending where Shadow is literally just an android created by Dr. Eggman. This had to be the biggest letdown of this game, is that your reward for replaying these tedious levels to see the other possibilities was either an ending that only minorly was different from the other one that you just got, or an ending that was so stupid that you didn't even care. To make matters worse though, none of these endings are even canon, as once you get every ending in the game, which I might add takes almost a dozen playthroughs of some of the most tedious levels that you've ever experienced in your entire life, you get the true ending where Shadow goes super and destroys Black Dune, and decides to leave his past in the past and move forward to the future. To rekindle my own childhood again here, this game story left me so disappointed even back then. I don't think I even touched this game until this video, meaning it's been over 20 years since I played this. It makes me feel old to even think that GameCube games can be over 20 years old now. But here we are. I'm an aging millennial who chose to spend his precious time on this earth making videos about mediocre games that most people have forgotten for their amusement of strangers. Frankly though, I wouldn't have it any other way, as I love doing this. The story is mediocre to say the least, but it's definitely not the worst Sonic story that exists. It could have been better, and a lot of people had much higher hopes, especially if you were a Shadow fan back then. But we don't always get what we want, do we? This game is semi-infamous for its 100% completion requirement. There are over 300 different paths you could take for the endings, and this game keeps track of each of them. So if you technically wanted to 100% this game, you need to play it over 300 times. If anyone has legitimately done this, I can only imagine they hate themselves. Fortunately, all it does is unlock a check mark on a list, so it's completely not necessary, but it exists, so it is worth pointing out. Other than that, levels all have 5 keys you can use to unlock a special door, and honestly, these are not worth it either. Many of these keys require extensive hunting and checking every corner of the map, and they usually don't contain anything of serious use. Some just giving you a weapon that you can use for that level, which only has a couple shots anyway, so not worth all the effort put in. Guns can't be carried into the following levels anyway, so it's not really worth your time. There's nothing of real value to unlock here, unless you just really love this game for some reason, and want to get the best times on all the levels and score all the A ranks, in which case I have to ask,
what's wrong with you?
Now for this segment, I have to talk about a fairly well-known mod called Shadow the Hedgehog Reloaded, which actually fixes a lot of the issues the game has, including reducing the number of endings needed to see the true ending from all of them to just 3, making the missions more forgiving, as in letting you actually miss a few of the enemies every now and then, making the game run a lot better, fixing a lot of the issues I talked about in this video as well, and just general bug fixes. It's really cool that almost 20 years after this mediocre game came out, fans came along to actually give it a much better experience. I would have played that version for this video, but I want to give everyone the true retrospective of this game and how it felt and played back when it came out. If you really want to play this game now though, I would definitely recommend that version, as it takes it from a mess of a game to a fairly serviceable Sonic game. It's far from a masterpiece even with the fixes, but at least it plays competently with it, and it makes it a much more enjoyable experience. And as far as I know, you can get it working on actual hardware if you're technical enough. Modders always find a way to fix things, it seems. That's why Bethesda is even still around as a company. Too bad they can't fix Duke Nukem Forever though, but that was broken from a level that I don't think can even be fixed. Sometimes the only solution is to put it down. Is Shadow the Hedgehog a great entry in the Sonic franchise? No. Is it a good spin-off game? Also no. But it did have a big effect on Sonic as a whole. Shadow may not have landed, but it was at least a game that told Sega what direction not to take Sonic in. And that was the dark and edgy direction. It would just take them several more attempts before they'd finally listen, but hey, Sega's extremely stubborn sometimes. Despite the failure of this game critically, it would at least have little effect on Shadow's popularity as a character, as he would continue being a staple of the franchise and the character that many fans would always look forward to seeing in future entries. He eventually would become less edgy over time, sure, but Shadow always acted as a foil to Sonic, and the two remain rivals to this very day. Would I welcome another spin-off starring Shadow? Absolutely. I think as the years have gone on, Sega has slowly started to realize their mistake that they made over the years, and I think that with enough time and effort, they could actually do another similar style game for the character that's actually executed well enough to be received positively. Even keeping the gun concept, to be honest. I'm hoping the years of getting Sonic 06, Sonic Heroes, and Sonic Boom are well behind us, but it's all impossible to tell, as sometimes companies have a good thing going and then screw it up via overconfidence. Square Enix had the greatest game of all time in their hands in Chrono Trigger, and yet still, they have yet to properly capitalize on that. Either way, it was fun to go back to a game that I played a lot in my early high school days, as a great way to close off Sonic Month. It may not be the greatest game in the series, but it's definitely one that is a historical entry. Thanks to everyone for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed Sonic Month as much as I did. It was a lot of work making these videos, especially trying to get them all out on time, so I greatly appreciate Shin0555 for letting me be a part of Sonic Month. It was really a fun thing to do, and I definitely want to try to do it again next year. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more retrospectives on retro or retro-inspired games like this one, and check out our Discord if you want to come hang out with us all in the community. I'll leave a link in the description below. As always, I'm WizPlay, and that's enough of that.